So we've been talking in ways that parents can find more self-care, and we've gone back to our cognitive triad. And I think there are some spots where we need to rethink other ways that we think about self-care. And one of the things we need to do as to parents is to learn what really effective self-care looks like. Because I think when parents think like, oh, I'm not getting any self-care, they have this kind of like maybe commercial idea of self-care of like, I need to take a bubble bath or go to a spa or whatever. And it's not so much that that's bad, it's just that I think self-care doesn't work psychologically in the way we often assume it works. We need to know what the research says is truly effective self-care. And so just to kind of give you a quick primer, I'm gonna walk through 5 behaviors that the research shows actually make us feel happier and more nourished, that actually kind of function as self-care. And one of the biggest ones is social connection. Pretty much every available study of happy people suggests that happy people are most social. And study after study shows if you intervene and make yourself be social, even if maybe you don't want to, you'll wind up feeling a little bit better. So kind of talking to somebody, reaching out, even if it's like a barista at a coffee shop or a stranger on the street, that quick little emotional connection winds up being huge for your psychology. Not something you want to do when you're feeling overwhelmed and in need of self-care, but the research shows it's really effective. Of course, this is the kind of thing we need to remember when we're feeling overwhelmed, right? When we're feeling this kind of, it's all too much, that's the time when you need to pick up the phone and call a friend. That's the time when you need to kind of reach out in whatever form is possible. But you need to do that in a healthy way. And just quick reminder that it's in real life social connection that seems to matter, at least in real time social connection. So calling a friend in real time, even if they live very far away, that works psychologically. Texting somebody, scrolling through Instagram, social media, those kinds of fake NutraSweetie social connections, those don't work as much as we think. So really try to connect in real time with someone as much as possible. Social connection, huge for self-care. Beyond that, we can get other-oriented in a different way, because study after study shows that if we really want to feel better ourselves, we should focus on other people's happiness. We should choose to do nice things for others. And I put kind of choose or voluntarily up here because I think that part's important. If we feel kind of forced, like we should be doing stuff for other people, that doesn't boost us as much. That can sometimes hurt. But when we're like, you know what, out of the goodness of my heart, I am fully choosing voluntarily to do something, that can have super huge effects. We get this wrong, right? We assume that being selfish, treating ourselves, buying ourselves something nice works. But study after study shows it's the kind things that we do for other people that really matter. Whether that's giving our time or even more relevantly, giving our money if you have some discretionary income. One of my favorite studies that I tell my college students about a lot is from Liz Dunn and her colleague. She's a professor at the University of British Columbia. And she does these studies where she walks up to people on the street and hands them some money. But the key is that she tells the people how to spend that money. So she hands you $20 and she says either do something really nice and treat yourself, or do something really nice for somebody else. You spend this money to do something kind for someone. And what she finds is at the end of the day, and even at the end of the week, people who spend the money on other people wind up happier than those who spend the equivalent amount of money to do something nice for themselves. And I think this is just something we miss in self-care. So much of self-care is buy yourself that bubble bath or that manicure or that new sporty thing that you want. It's not like gift that to your best friend or a coworker. But the studies show that we'd be better off if we kind of did something for somebody else. So that's number 2. We need to voluntarily help others. But the third kind of big piece of self-care that's really effective is to get a little bit more embodied. And we can do that simply by moving our bodies. Study after study shows that the simple act of getting, say, like 20 or 30 minutes of exercise a day can reduce symptoms of depression, symptoms of anxiety. It's a really great way to get a dose of what's called hormetic stress, which is a form of stress where you increase your stress ever so quickly, but then you shut it off. You actually train your stress system to go on and off. And a quick way to do that is with a workout, especially a very intense but short workout. You do something really intensely, jump around for 10 minutes of jumping jacks, and then just stop. Really great way to improve your self-care. And honestly, it's silly and available to us in every 5 minutes. We just forget that we can do it. And it's worth noting, this is not running a marathon, right? This is just moving your body just a little bit actually does the work. So if you kind of get in that sort of drill sergeant mode of now I must train for a marathon to improve my different, no, just get out there and walk a little bit. Hugely effective form of self-care. In addition, a big form of self-care that I think parents don't gift themselves is a little bit of rest, right? That means making sure you're getting sleep. But if you're having a tough day, try and squeeze in a nap, right? Try to squeeze in the kind of things that you'll need to do to get a good night's sleep later on, right? Which is maybe putting your phone away, maybe doing a kind of quick ritual before you go to bed to kind of get your body primed for it. Anything you can do to promote your own rest matters for getting self-care. And this is where I'm starting to see the facial expressions I often see from parents when I hear about this, which is like, that's going to be hard. Like, that takes a lot of work to get extra rest. Like, yes, sometimes self-care is going to take some work and it is going to take some sacrifice. It might not be as easy as buying a bubble bath, but it's much more effective to do that. And number 5, I think, is another one that's hard, but really quite powerful, which is that when we're feeling really stressed out, we can take a little bit of a mindfulness break. Research shows that wandering minds, these ruminative minds, are really unhappy minds, right? But the simple act of taking a deep breath, stopping, noticing, for example, a few things you can see, a few things you can hear, where you just pay attention to the world. It sounds so silly, but the act of doing that can really refresh your emotional state, it can refresh your attentional state. It just sort of shuts things off. Even the simple act of taking one deep breath. We can all try it here together. Just notice what that did for your body. It took like, a few seconds, right? That's a quick mindfulness break. And we can squeeze those in whenever we kind of need them, right? Mindfulness, I think when we talk about meditation and mindfulness, we can get this mode of like, we have to, in the face of like, stressful things, like, do a 45-minute meditation. No, like the research shows it can be as simple as a few quick breaths, right? It can be as simple as getting embodied in other ways, right? If you are in the middle of doing the dishes and you have everything going on, stop and think, how can I feel the water on my hands? Let me feel the temperature on my hands. Let me feel, just like get embodied in this practice. Even something as simple as walking. My colleague Dan Harris, who runs the 10% Happier podcast, he talks a lot about, he does walking meditations where he'll just walk a stretch of floor in his house back and forth just once or twice. Just notice how it feels in his feet, how he feels in his body. And just like those simple things are like short, but really true self-care. I bring these things up because this is what self-care looks like. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge spa vacation or something like that, although props to you if you can squeeze that in. Sometimes effective self-care looks like this kind of stuff, but we sort of get it wrong. So make sure you're prioritizing the stuff that's really effective. And beyond that, again, this is not just a thinking thing, but an acting thing. You gotta find ways to actually invest in this stuff in real life. And it's worth noting that sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's saying no to a few things at work so that you can get a little bit more sleep in, right? Sometimes it's like setting boundaries with people or saying no to otherwise great opportunities. Sometimes it's even taking things off your plate with your kids, where you say that for me to be an effective parent right now, I actually need some space to get my workout in or get some rest in. Those things always feel hard, but ultimately they're gonna wind up allowing you to perform better, both at work and in your parenting. So really try to find ways to invest in stuff. That might mean scheduling in, even in a busy week, a walk with a colleague so you get some social connection and some exercise. It might look like coming home from work a little bit before the kids so you can squeeze in a little nap, or getting up a little bit later. Incredibly decadent, but it works. It might look like finding simple ways to check in on other people, right? Just make a practice, maybe as soon as you get to your driveway at home from work, text a friend and check in on them, right? Or just like, even if it's like, a quick $5 donation to a cause of your choice, right? Schedule these sort of ritual moments to do volunteer stuff for other people, and that kind of stuff can really helpful. But the key is, it doesn't work if you're just thinking, oh, I should be doing that. You have to actually put it into practice. You actually have to really invest in self-care to do this right.